The church needs to learn counter propaganda strategies. Yes, you heard me right. And I'm going to repeat it. The church needs to learn counter propaganda strategies. And in this video, I'm going to show you why that is the case. Let me share with you what propaganda is. Then we will proceed from there to talk about some other things. This is the definition of propaganda. It is the deliberate and systematic manipulation of symbols to influence public opinion. If you look, this is from, I think it's Encyclopedia Britannica. Yeah. Look at this. Propaganda is the dissemination of information, facts, arguments, rumors, half-truths, or lies to influence public opinion. If you follow this link, you're going to see that there is a deliberateness and all of that in propaganda. It is a deliberate attempt to disseminate. You see, it says the deliberate and systematic. Deliberate and systematic. To manipulate symbols, manipulate figures, manipulate information. And in doing that, you're going to mix facts, arguments, rumors, half-truths, or lies. Everything mixed together in order to influence public opinion. That's what propaganda is. And I said the church needs to learn how to counter it. The church must learn how to counter it. Otherwise, we will be undoing a lot of things which many servants of God have done for us to come and enjoy. Particularly the church in Nigeria, we need to learn counter-propaganda strategies. Let's hear from this man. I didn't know him before, but somebody sent the video to me, and I got that statement from him. Let's listen.
The church needs to learn what is called counter-propaganda strategies. That's where we are weak. Are you aware that there is a grand plan to demonetize the church?
Did you hear that? He said, that's where we're weak. And he's giving an example. Are you aware that there's a grand plan to demonetize, to defund the church? And what will be the response of the average Christian? Nobody can. Let's hear from him.
Nobody can demonetize the church. Jesus said, I will build my church. The gate of hell can... Shh, you don't know history. It can.
Jesus said, I will build my church. The gates of hell cannot prevail against it. And he said, you don't know history. You don't know history. Let's hear some of the history.
Happen. The revival in Nigeria can never die because Nigeria is the firstborn of God in Africa. God has many sons, and sometimes firstborn can be useless.
You heard that? The revival in Nigeria can never die. Nigeria is the arrowhead of revival in Africa. Nigeria is the beloved of God. Nigeria is, the apple eye of God, and all that kind of thing. The church needs to learn counter-propaganda strategies. Let's hear more.
7 churches that John sent those letters to, they are no longer in existence, including the one Jesus commended. Turkey was once the hub of revival. Check what is happening in South Korea. Check what is happening in Europe. In the days of John Wesley, Charles Finley, power of God moved across Europe. Now they're a monument. Nigeria can become a shadow of itself, and it's heading there.
It's heading there. Nigeria can become a shadow of itself. I mean, he's talking about the church in Nigeria. And he says, it's already heading there. It's already heading there. All right? I spoke about a book written by Ayatollah Khomeini, the man that caused the revolution, 1978 revolution of Iran, and turned it into a Muslim republic, an Islamic republic up until now. I'm going to share with you another section of that book right now. So let's see. Here is a book. It is the Little Green Book. This is Ayatollah Khomeini. This is Ayatollah Khomeini. All right? The Little Green Book. On page 20 of this book, let's go to page 20. He has some interesting things to tell us. It is, can you see the chapter? Propaganda. It said media and propaganda. That's the title of that chapter. Media and propaganda. Let's read part of it. We have a duty to create an Islamic republic, and to that end, our first obligation is the creation of a system of propaganda. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Let me read it to you again. We have a system. We have a duty. It's a duty to create an Islamic republic, meaning there is an Islamization agenda. And sometimes it comes through violence, and sometimes it comes through propaganda, and sometimes it is a combination of violence and propaganda. And to that end, the duty of creating an Islamic republic, to that end, the first obligation is the creation of a system of propaganda. That's what people like Sheikh Gumi used to do. It's propaganda. That's what people like, some other people. There is this man called Isiaq, something like that, that publishes propaganda every time. But I understand them. Now let me read further. He said, this has always been the way things work. This has always been the way things work. Did you hear that? Governments can be put in place and governments can be demolished by this system of propaganda. Let's read more. Once a few people sit down together, think matters out together, make decisions, you just decide this is what we want to happen, it follows that propaganda will emerge. Propaganda will emerge. Remember the definition of propaganda. Remember. Here is it. It is the deliberate and systematic manipulation of symbols to influence public opinion. Propaganda is the dissemination of information, facts, arguments, rumors, half-truths, or lies to influence public opinion. Let's read more from Ayatollah Khomeini. He said, then, little by little, he said, it follows that propaganda will emerge once a group of people gather together and they decide this is what we want to do. What is that? We want to create an Islamic republic. We want to Islamize this particular country. Then little by little, others who think the same way are attracted to the group. Remember, they keep on their propaganda. And others that have the same mind will be attracted to the group, and it increases in size. Ultimately, the group and its propaganda becomes a force that can infiltrate a huge system of government. I hope you are reading this. The group and its propaganda becomes a force that can infiltrate a huge system of government. We want them to change their educational system to favor Islam. We will infiltrate a huge system of government. We want the economy to favor a part of the country and to be harsh against the other part of the country. We will infiltrate a huge system of government. We'll put in place this one, put in place this one, put in place this one. We will make this appointment, and then propaganda upon propaganda. So they will infiltrate a huge system of government or even bring about its downfall. Even bring about its downfall. What brought about the downfall of? I don't want to. You think about it. Think about it. This is propaganda. And it's not only so. Sometimes the press buys into that propaganda. The press buys into the propaganda. And that is where the whole thing becomes worrisome. So today, I want to tell you, I want to show you what propaganda does, unchecked propaganda, what it does in the heart and the mind of human beings. That's what I want to show. Some time ago, I think we did a video and we called it, You Got What You Asked. You got what you asked. I'm going to leave the description, the link in the description down below, so that if you are interested in watching that video, you got what you asked. What brought Nigeria into the current situation? Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. It is the propaganda. It is the Islamization agenda. We were clearly told that the government was not coming to build bridges, to provide employment, to boost economy. No, it is to promote the honor of Islam and that of the Prophet. As simple as that. I wasn't the one that said it. It's there in public domain. You have access to it. But in case you don't understand what I'm saying, make sure you watch that video that I'm talking about. You got what you asked. So a good friend of mine took the video and sent the link to somebody. I'm going to call that person Mr. S. So my friend took that video and sent it to Mr. S. I've taken the screenshots of some of the conversations that eventually ensued. So when my friend sent it to Mr. S, this was Mr. S's reaction. So he's saying the video is laughable because the church herself messed things up. The video is laughable because the church herself messed things up. He continues, fake messengers in the name of MOG. If you don't know the meaning of MOG, that is man of God. All over the land, fake messengers in the name of man of God, all over the land. That's why the video that we did, that's why it is laughable to him. Then he concluded by saying, I refuse to accept this video as a leading light to what is the reason to our situation in Nigeria. He refuses to accept that video, even though the people that did the video made it very public. And we're seeing the result now. They said the candidate that is going to promote Islam is the candidate that we're going to put there. And that we will, if we can succeed in putting a Muslim ticket, good for us, good for Islam. But it's not good for the nation. It's not good for the economy. It's not good for our education. It's not good for anything. It's only good for Islam. I wasn't the one that said it. It was they. They were the ones who said it. And so this man, he said, I refuse to accept this video as a leading light to show us what is the reason to our situation in Nigeria. He refuses. Can you see that? That is what propaganda causes. So when my friend brought this to me, showed it to me and said, this is what Mr. S said. Okay, so I went ahead to say, all right, here is what I told him. So I said, why not ask him to come and discuss? Why not? So if somebody calls himself man of God, according to Mr. S, MOG, if somebody calls himself man of God, how does that offend him? How does it offend Mr. S? Anybody can call himself whatever he likes. How does that behead anybody? Is that jihad? No. He refuses to see what we're saying, but his problem is man of God. Man of God. That's because of propaganda. So I sent another message. I would like to engage him if he is ready for that. We have to openly challenge all this narrative that the Christian leaders are to be held accountable for what is happening in Nigeria. And so my friend said, okay, that he will send the message to him. So I followed up by saying, I invite Mr. S. I have taped out his name. So let's call him Mr. S. I invite Mr. S to appear as a guest on our platform. We would like him to offer his reasons for refusing to blame the people, the Islamization agenda, for the problems of Nigeria, but instead, he has chosen to blame the church. He has chosen to blame the men of God. He doesn't have to show his face if he is not comfortable with that. Let him give us the time that is convenient for him. Then I will send him the link. I hope you are following our conversation. Very civil conversation. Say, I invite you. And if he wanted me to come to his channel, I was ready to go. Now, my friend responded and said, okay. So he sent the message to him. Here is the response of my friend. So he said, the message comes. He sent him my message. And then he told him, the message comes from the spokesman. I guess he wanted to say the spokesman or the person in the video that we did. Thanks. And then he said, forwarded. I forwarded the message to him. With this message, the message comes from, okay, he forwarded my message to him, the invitation we sent to him. And then he said, this message is from the man speaking in the video. And my friend said, expecting his response. Expecting his response. Well, do you think Mr. S is going to respond? I don't think so. And so, let's continue. Expecting his response. So I said, okay. And he said, all right. But as usual, I knew he was not going to come up. I knew. So I said, I bet he won't show up. I told my friend that way. I bet he won't show up. You think that I was wrong? Let's see what follows. And so I told my friend, after I said, I bet he won't show up. I said, the reason he is saying all that nonsense is because of the stupid things they used to hear about pastors on radio and TV. The reason he's blaming MOG, men of God, for the problems of Nigeria is because of the things that he hears on radio and TV, the propaganda. That is the same problem with one man that this K brought one day. So that's another case. Somebody, an acquaintance, brought a friend of his, and he started all these men of God are responsible. Men of God are responsible. And we pressed him, please explain to us. Tell us how men of God are responsible for the problems happening in Nigeria. So I said, do you remember him? Or he said, yes. Of course, yes. He remembers him very vividly. But let's go back to the case of Mr. S. So after my friend told him, the man in the video would like to engage you. Let's have a public discussion. Come and give reasons. He even sent my message to him. What was his response? This was his response. I am not interested in issues which tend to divide Nigeria. The church is in a mess created by the church. This is the response. This is the response. This is what propaganda does. It creates what we call cognitive dissonance. So I responded to my friend. He is suffering from cognitive dissonance. He is on the one hand saying that the church created a mess, but he is not willing to point out how the church created the mess. Meanwhile, on the other hand, he is ignoring the people who are openly announcing that they want to Islamize Nigeria. He is not interested in issues which tend to divide Nigeria, but he is unwilling to see that the Islamization of Nigeria is a big issue which will eventually divide Nigeria. This is cognitive dissonance. He is not interested in issues which will divide Nigeria. Who wants to divide Nigeria? Of course, those who are advancing Islamization cause. They're the ones that want to divide Nigeria. But he doesn't want to discuss it. However, he is bold enough. He's not bold enough to discuss that, but he's bold enough to crucify the church leaders. He is bold enough to blame the church for the present situation of Nigeria. I can't understand this. This is the work of propaganda. And so, I went ahead to say, he is not willing to talk about that for obvious reasons. Fear. The real problem is that he has an axe to grind with the church, period. And I reminded my friend, I told you that he will not come. He will not show up. Period. This is the result of propaganda. This is the result of propaganda. Before I close this video, I'm going to elucidate. I'm going to explain what I mean by this is the result of propaganda. And so here is, I just share with you. Here is a news item by one of the leading newspaper outlets in Nigeria, Punch newspaper. You can see it on your screen, on the screen. What is the title? Ondo pastor, 5 others to die by hanging for robbery. Wow. This is the kind of propaganda things you hear every day in Nigeria. It is pastor, pastor, pastor. When I got this, I was interested. This happened this year, early this year, just about how many months ago? Just about 6 months ago. Here is it. Let's read it. An Ondo State High Court sitting in Akure, the state capital, has sentenced 6 persons to death over their involvement in bank robberies, which took place in Akure and Idonre in 2011. The convicts include a pastor, Adewale Adelu, and 5 others, Ikechukwu, Madwegu, Fayemi, Olubusuyi, Rokpo Adeleye, Dele Otopa, and Bayo Omotosho. Do you get anything to establish the fact that, look at the title, Ondo pastor, and I bet you, this is the only place where the reporter has proved that the man actually, the robber, that he was actually a pastor. The convicts include a pastor, Adewale Adelu. Period. Case closed. Point proven. He is a pastor. So I said, okay, let me see. Is he going to mention anything? Is he going to describe anything? Never. Let's read to the rest. Let's read to the end. They were found guilty of robbing 2 commercial banks in Akure and Idonre on November 19 and December 8, 2001 in Akure and Idonre, respectively. They were arrested by the men of the State Police Command and were charged to court. The court delivered the judgment on Tuesday. When the trial began, the convicts were arraigned before the court on 4-count charge bordering on conspiracy, armed robbery, and illegal possession of firearms, and were later remanded in Olokuta Correctional Center. The prosecution counsel, F.K. Salami, told the court that the convicts and others were armed with AK-47 guns, dynamite, and other weapons at Oyemekun Road, Akure, conspired to attack and robbed a branch of Diamond Bank PLC, after which they went away with a sum of 30 million naira and different brand of phones, including other valuable property. Let's read to the end. The convicts on December 8, 2011 at 2 p.m. were also alleged to have robbed First Bank PLC at Yaba Road, Idonre, where they carted away another sum of 4 million naira. According to the prosecution, the offenses contravene sections 6b, subsection 1, blah, 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 and 2a and 2b of the Robbery and Firearms Special Provision Act, Cap R11, Volume 14, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004. There were arguments from both the prosecuting and defense counsel at various court proceedings on the matter, while witnesses were also invited to the court to testify. In the judgment of Justice Yemi Fasomi on Tuesday, the court held that the prosecution proved its case beyond reasonable doubt. The judge also said the defendants were unanimous in their confessions and the role each of them played in the robberies. To this end, Justice Fasomi sentenced all the defendants to death by hanging in each of the counts. That's all. That's the news. Look at the title, Ondo Pastor. And there is just no place where it was clearly shown that this person is a pastor. Never. Why didn't the reporter say 6 to die by hanging for robbery. Why didn't it just write 6 men to die by hanging for robbery? Why did he have to say Ondo pastor, 5 others to die by hanging for robbery? And there is just no place in this news item where we can see that this is really a pastor. This is the kind of propaganda that goes on in town. And what the reporter is one Peter Dada. This one will call himself a Christian. Why did he have to report this? Because he understood that this kind of news item sells. Just put, pastor did this, pastor did that. In any news item, on radio, on TV, on the internet, and people are flocking there to go and read it. That is what propaganda does. And if it is not checked, if it continues, it creates a sentiment, a bias in the minds of the people against the church, against Christians, against pastors. It is so rampant that we need to stand up and counter this kind of thing. If I were the editor or the editor-in-chief of this man, this reporter, he should be fired. This is sloppy reporting. This is amateur reporting. This is propaganda reporting. There's just no name you can call it. Why not 6 to die by hanging for robbery? Why did he have to say Ondo pastor? And no place in his reporting, no place in this article did he mention the name of the church, the branch of the church, anything. So now we are to believe that this reporter, whatever he says is correct. We're just to believe it. Why? A reporter said it. A Punch reporter said it. This is what you are going to see. This is what you're going to hear on TV, on radio, constantly. And if a population hears this and there is no other side of the story, guess what? This is the situation we're going to find ourselves, where the church is in bad opinions of the public. On and on like that. And people like Mr. S, this is the kind of the things they swallow. And then they come and say MOG in the town. Let's assume that everybody, let's just assume that everybody calls themselves man of God. How does that negatively affect Nigeria? How does that destroy the economy of Nigeria? How does that hike fuel prices? How does that increase the prices of food commodities? How has that destroyed the nation? By calling themselves men of God. This is propaganda, and we need to stand against it. And ever since this thing came out, maybe I have not seen one. Show me one single Christian or a pastor or a church that responded to this man. I have kept this news article. I have actually what do you call it? I've kept it somewhere for a day like this. I knew I was going to do a video on it. Even before we started doing public videos, I knew there's something wrong. And I can show you another one. I don't want this video to be too long. I can show you another one. Let me attempt that. So here is another one. Pastor remanded for murder of member's son. On and on like that. And if you go through this article, you are going to see that they're just going to say, okay, this person, some people are attending his church. Why? I can't understand. Let me show you another one. Hope I'm going to get this. No, it's not. I can't find that. The point that I'm making is this. This is the kind of news that sells like wildfire. Reporters have learned that they sell very well. It's all for business. Everything, they must attach a pastor, attach a church, attach. But if it's on the other hand, on the other side, okay, the person has a name. Even if he is assistant these. See, when I went for my NYSC decades ago, nearly every house in the north, nearly every house, go to Ilorin and see what I'm talking about. Nearly every house has a mosque attached to it. Nearly every house. And therefore, the person leading them there can be called an imam or a sheikh. So let's assume that somebody on this side, as a Christian, decides to build one mushroom, what he calls church, somewhere. And maybe 10 people are attending the place, and then he eventually committed a crime. The reporting is going to be a pastor. Even if the only members in his church are his wife and children, he's going to be addressed as a pastor did this, a pastor did that. That somebody is calling himself a pastor. What does that mean? How many times have you seen that these news people, this pressmen and women, how many times have they come to report that Imam did this, Imam did that? Or if it is somebody that is, I don't know what they call them, that is calling people for prayer in a mosque, do you ever, the crimes are committed by all kinds of people. Or if it is one assistant imam somewhere that is just helping in a mosque administration and they commit crimes, you never hear it. And if you ever do, imagine the frequency and compare it to what they do to churches. So it is because there is a taste for that kind of news. There's a taste for it. People want to hear it. People want the church to be castigated. And there's no short supply. It's in very big demand. And so they must spice up their news items. What do you call that? That's propaganda. And Mr. S has bought into that. He doesn't want to listen to anything. He doesn't want anything to divide Nigeria. Even if jihadists are busy kidnapping, killing, raping, maiming, even if there's embezzlement, even if there's mismanagement, he doesn't want to talk about anything that would divide Nigeria. His only special area of interest, his area of concentration is the men of God. He wants to hear news about what the men of God have done. This is serious. Let me know what your comments are in the comment section down below. There is need to stand up and push back on these propaganda machines. We have to push back. And if we don't do it, no amount of noise that you make in your church is going to do it. Propaganda works fine. That is why Khomeini, read it again. That's why Khomeini said, they set up propaganda. We have a duty to create an Islamic republic. And to that end, our first obligation is the creation of a system of propaganda. Lastly, he said, this one that has been, he said, this group, ultimately, the group and its propaganda becomes a force that can infiltrate a huge system of government or even bring about its downfall. Governments are falling in this country by propaganda. But I'm not into politics. It is only reporting that is lopsided against the church that I'm interested in responding to. Thank you, and God bless you.